Life aboard the USS Arleigh Burke means 2 a.m. fire drills in full gear, then trying to sleep strapped into your rack while the ship rolls and every door in the passageway decides to slam at once. From shore, a destroyer looks like confidence. Inside, it's discipline, noise, and a machine that never stops asking something from you. Today, you're going to feel what life inside a destroyer really looks like, pier to midwatch, drill to maintenance. Before we start, hit subscribe and let's get into it. It starts pier side at Naval Base San Diego. On a ship like the USS Sterett, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, leaving port isn't casual. It's sea and anchor, and it pulls the ship into one coordinated move. Line handlers work mooring lines with gloves and muscle memory because a line under tension doesn't give second chances. Force protection is manned. The .50 zero caliber mounts scan for small boats and anything closing too fast or too close. Most days it's quiet, but you never treat it like it's quiet. You watch, you report, you stay ready. On the bridge, attention becomes motion. The conning officer calls contacts and keeps eyes on the water ahead. The officer of the deck takes in reports and makes decisions that keep you safe and legal in crowded lanes. The helmsman turns that into rudder and engine inputs. Destroyers still run on human voice and human judgment, and you feel it in how short the language is. Nobody's trying to sound cool, they're trying to be correct. Zoom out, and the mission snaps into focus. Modern destroyers are fast, maneuverable escorts designed to protect larger vessels and operate wherever the job needs them. One day, you're part of a carrier strike group. The next, you're on patrol as a self-contained problem solver. The ship is roughly 500 feet long. An Arleigh Burke crew is often described as about 280 to 330 people across operations, engineering, combat systems, supply, and admin. The chain of command is visible. The CO and XO set the tone, the chiefs run the deck plates, division officers steer the work, and junior sailors do the hands-on tasks that keep the ship alive. And then you go below deck and the ship stops looking like a machine and starts feeling like a place you live. Passageways are narrow. Ladder wells are steep. You learn to move sideways past shipmates and tool bags without turning it into a collision. The air carries paint, detergent, coffee, warm electronics, and salt. Under your boots is a constant hum of ventilation and pumps, like the ship is breathing through metal. Topsides, the hardware explains why destroyers have a reputation. Up forward is the Mark 45 5-inch gun for surface combat and naval gunfire support. Conventional rounds reach about 13 nautical miles. Closer in is the last-ditch layer, the 20mm Phalanx CIWS. Radar-guided, firing up to about 4,500 rounds per minute inside that final 1 to 2 nautical miles where you're out of time. But the heaviest punch is hidden under your feet. The Mark 41 vertical launch system is where the destroyer becomes a toolbox. A ship can carry up to 96 missiles, and the mix depends on the mission, surface-to-air defense, ballistic missile defense, and land attack cruise missiles. Tomahawks are the headline because they can strike land targets more than 1,000 miles away. But the daily reality is defense, layers out to long range, built to buy time and deny the enemy an easy shot. None of it works as separate gadgets. It's tied together through Aegis, the combat system that takes sensor data and turns it into decisions fast enough to matter. So, your job is rarely press button, win fight. It tracks, verifies, reports, classifies, cross-check, and only then acts. That's why the Combat Information Center feels like the ship's inner room. You walk into CIC and it's darker, quieter, calm on purpose. You're surrounded by screens and headsets, but the real product is a clean picture. Bearing, range, course, speed, track number, recommendation. Sailors will point to the SPY radar as the centerpiece of that picture, a high-power phased array designed to search and track and feed Aegis what it needs. Early detection buys time, time buys options, and options keep you from getting boxed in when the ocean is huge and the timeline is short. And CIC still has human rhythm. Watchstanders swapping seats without drama. Keyboards clicking, coffee cups parked where they won't fly, voices kept steady because panic is contagious and discipline is protective. Then you meet the other heart of the ship, engineering. If CIC is the brain, engineering is the lungs and blood. Engineers keep electricity alive because without power, your sensors and weapons are just expensive metal. They keep propulsion running, and on a ship like the USS Paul Hamilton, the numbers define the work. Around 505 feet long, beam about 66 feet, crew around 300, driven by 4 General Electric LM2500 gas turbines, pushing the ship to speeds over 30 knots. You feel it as vibration through the deck, the steady heat of machinery, and the smell of warm metal and lube oil. Down here, you learn the ocean never stops attacking the hardware. Salt works into seams, heat cycles harden seals, vibration loosens fasteners one tiny turn at a time. Humidity creeps into connectors and turns clean metal into corrosion. Even on calm seas, the hull flexes and the plant runs hot, so wear is never paused. And everything is tied together. Seawater cools heat exchangers, lube oil keeps rotating machinery alive, and electrical buses feed controllers and fans. A small casualty can cascade because one loop was shielding another. That's why the first move is control, not a wrench. Ships store energy everywhere. A fire main can sit around 100 to 150 pounds per square inch. High-pressure air can sit around 3,000 pounds per square inch. Treat that casually, and you don't just break equipment, you hurt people and grow the problem. So engineering lives on checklists, tags, and habits that look boring until you realize boring is how you survive. Engineering is also where you learn the destroyer is its own utilities company. The ship makes potable water with reverse osmosis for drinking, cooking, cleaning, and showers. That means running out isn't a mood, it's math. Water load, fuel load, food load, parts load. And Arleigh Burke is often described as having an impressive 4,400 nautical mile range. But on mission, it still has to be refueled and resupplied. Underway replenishment is strict and unforgiving because you're moving at sea close aboard another ship, running heavy lines with real consequences if someone gets sloppy. Daily life is where the routine becomes the real weapon. Watches rotate around the clock, and the ship doesn't care what time your body thinks it is. Someone is always driving. Someone is always fighting the picture in CIC. And someone is always keeping the plan alive. You come off watch, still hearing call-outs, then you eat, change gear, and go straight into maintenance, training, or drills because salt and time don't wait. Drills are constant. Firefighting, flooding, casualty response, medical. They're rehearsed until your hands move before your brain finishes the sentence. You learn your gear by feel, and you learn your routes in your head because in smoke, you don't get to think it through. You execute what you practiced. The destroyer doesn't just train you to fight someone else. It trains you to fight the ship itself when the ship gets hurt. Between drills, it's preservation work, chip, paint, rust control, inspection tags, logs, listening checks, and chasing. Small changes before they become big casualties. Now let's talk about your space. Living quarters were not the main priority, which is a polite way of saying you learn to live close. Berthing is bunk style. Rooms can house up to 24 people sharing 1 shower, 3 sinks, and 2 toilets. Your rack is a few feet from someone else's rack, and your roommate might be 23 other people. Your rack becomes your personal border, and that 8x11 area for photos stops sounding small when you haven't seen home in weeks. When the ship moves hard, you strap in with hurricane straps because the ocean doesn't care that you're asleep. You also get good at living in the dark because a destroyer runs on watch schedules, not daylight. The shock for most people is that you can still sleep well, even if you don't sleep long. The ship rocks and your body adapts. 3 or 4 hours underway can feel deeper than a full night on land. That's not romance. That's exhaustion and survival. You fall asleep to the ship's hum. And you wake up to the 1MC, door clanks, footfalls in the passageway, and the sense that the day already started without asking you. Food becomes the other survival pillar. The mess serves hot meals 3 times a day, and mid-rats exist because there's always an overnight watch. After weeks of steel and salt air, a hot meal at the right time does more for morale than any speech. The ship store matters too because coffee and snacks can turn a bad day into a manageable one. Recreation is modest but real. A small gym with treadmills, bikes, and free weights, always in use because fitness out here is readiness. You might have to haul a hose during a fire, drag gear through a ladder well, or stand a long watch with a clear head. Medical support exists, but it's limited by reality. You'll hear numbers like a crew over 300 and a medical team of 3. That's why prevention gets treated like a mission. Hydration, sleep when you can, reporting problems early. It also pushes cross-training because the ship runs 24/7, and nobody can be just one thing. You'll do something technical and high stakes, then You'll scrub, sweep, inventory, log, and repeat. Even the moments that look cool from the outside are built out of routine. When a helicopter comes to the stern flight deck, a small team in cranials and float coats snaps into a choreography of hand signals, chocks, chains, and focused silence. On big decks, you hear about color-coded jerseys, and on a destroyer, you see the same idea in miniature. Visible roles, tight spacing, no room for confusion. The aircraft is secured, the deck is cleared, and the ship goes right back to being a ship. No victory lap, just the next task. If you want to see where destroyer life is headed, you look at the DDG 1000 Zumwalt class. The outside looks different, but the inside is still human math. About 147 sailors on a roughly 610-foot ship that's often cited around $6.2 billion. Automation helps, but it doesn't create privacy out of thin air. And if you pull back farther, you're part of a history that goes deeper than modern radar. Destroyers grew out of the 1890s torpedo boat destroyer idea. Fast ships built to defend bigger ships against fast attackers. The Royal Navy launched early examples like the Havoc class in 1893 to 1894, and the U.S. Navy followed with its first destroyer, USS Bainbridge, commissioned in 1902. After World War II, the destroyer became the missile and sensor ship you recognize today. From screening carriers off Okinawa to today's Burks, the core is the same. A few hundred people keeping a warship alive, keeping each other alive, and staying ready while the ocean keeps pressing on the walls. Tell us in the comments what part surprised you most, the sea and anchor reality, the berthing math, or the way routine becomes the real weapon. And if you're here for more Inside the Steel naval stories, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.